It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on his afternoon drive. Alan, being that it is Thursday, week 2 of the NFL season officially kicks off tonight. How are we feeling?
Feeling good. Really, I feel like it was a really dense, informative Thursday practice for us on the South Side here. Feel like I learned a lot, and so I'm excited to share it.
Okay, well, let's not wait any further to kind of dive into that. Obviously, everybody was kind of waiting for today's updates in terms of would we get a clear picture about the quarterback position, the tackle stuff that we dove into a little bit yesterday. Obviously, we can further go into that today, but let's start with the quarterbacks first and foremost. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, still kind of up in the air which one we're going to see week 2. Any further light to be shined on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson was not a full participant in practice today, and Justin Fields confirmed he took most of the first-team reps. That didn't really surprise me. That was, it's sort of one step closer to Justin Fields making his second consecutive start. I think at this point, it's feeling more likely to me than not that Fields is going to play. Still a chance that Russell Wilson could find a way to get in there, but he's going to have to thread a pretty tight needle at this point of the week, having not really done a lot in practice yet. He did do more today than yesterday. There's a video, a couple up on the channel here, of him doing some footwork drills, and then there's also a video of him talking about what he feels like he needs to do to get back in the lineup. And he says, I'm getting closer, I'm getting there, but obviously, by his own admission, is not there in terms of where he needs to be physically in order to play. And so I think probably, leaning towards he is not going to be healthy enough to play, but still nothing official or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, kind of going back to the discussion we had earlier in the week, I don't like necessarily talking in like just on my own suspicion or my own opinion of how things are going to play out. But like, if you were asking me, even at the beginning of the week, I would have said, this is how I think it's going to happen. Like, I was thinking Justin Fields would end up starting this football game anyway. It certainly seems like we're trending in that direction, though nothing is official. We normally save like questions or comments like that until the end, but this just feels like this is a good place to kind of put this one in. There was a YouTube comment that we got from like 12 minutes ago, so it's also super recent, but it's on the video of Russell Wilson talking about what he needs to do to return to the lineup, which actually, let me ask you about that first and foremost. What did Russ say in terms of that? Like, what does he feel like the trajectory is there for him getting back?
I mean, he basically said he feels like he has to be 100% to play. Like, he didn't actually come out and say that, but he said, I believe the direct quote was like, physically, I have to be able to do pretty much everything. So, like, to me, that was interesting. I think we learned that, right? I think it was an open question as to how healthy Russell Wilson felt like he needed to be to get back in the lineup. And then I think there's also, like, honestly, an additional step where, like, okay, even if he goes out there and practice and he does everything, like he demonstrates the ability to do everything the Steelers might want him to do to play in a game, I'm still not sure that would be enough, because there is going to be this hesitancy, having gone through this once already and re-injuring it once, where he went 2 weeks, 3 weeks, played in games, like thought he was going to be fine, and then re-injured it. Even if he goes out there tomorrow and does everything, like, I don't know. I think that he was kind of saying, the way he was kind of talking about it, like, it would not be definitive that he would be in the game, even if he goes out there tomorrow and does everything in practice.
Which, like you said, that's kind of new, because like part of me was like, oh, as a 35-year-old, 36-year-old, like you would guy that's been around the block, guy that's probably played in this league, we know has played in this league while dealing with some types of injuries in the past. Like, would they put him out there less than 100% because he's obviously done that? But the fact that they wouldn't, is that more because of they just feel that much comfortable, like there's not that much of a gap between him and Justin? Is it because this is his first time obviously running this type of offense, like, or is it just a conglomeration of all things?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a high level of confidence in Justin. I think it's a relatively low stakes game on the schedule. This is not like a must win date. They should be, they're pretty heavily favored. Like, they should win this game with Justin Fields. And I think it's the having injured it once already factor, re-injured it once already factor, where, they're going to be really cautious with the next one. They want Russell Wilson to be healthy down the stretch run. And I think they should feel like they can beat the Denver Broncos with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
There's also a part of it that like for the team, getting some looks at Justin Fields is a good thing. Like, they wanted this to happen. Like, they didn't want Russell Wilson to be injured, but they wanted Justin Fields to have to play some this year. They were going to have to engineer this on their own if it didn't happen organically. So it's like, really, I don't see the Steelers in like a rush to bring Russ back.
Right. Well, it's interesting you brought up the low stakes thing, because that's kind of where this comment goes. This comes from Send Six Prey on YouTube. Honestly, I'm kind of afraid to ask what exactly is behind the name, but we appreciate the comment. He says Russ will be back for the big dogs. He beat KC and Buffalo on the road last season with a defense that was giving up 70, which that is factual. That did happen against the Dolphins last year. And no skill position players. Let Russ get healthy. Let Justin beat the bum teams. At least that he has that appreciation for these NFL teams, and ease Russ back when the division games / playoffs come up. You mentioned the low stakes game relatively to the rest of the schedule that this is obviously early in the year. That's the thing. I think it's more about the early portion of the year than it is the team itself.
Yeah, right. It's both, but no game is must win when you're 1-0 in week 2. Like, it just isn't. And so I think that's a big part of it. I'm not sure that the Steelers are approaching it as if there is a level of urgency here still. Like, they need to win these games. And so I don't really think they're looking at it that way. I just think they're looking at it from a standpoint of, if you have an injured quarterback, and playing him now might mean you won't be able to have him later. You're risking a more serious re-aggravation by playing him now. Those later games are more important, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the math, right? Where it's like, well, and they don't have anywhere near this fine of a percentage. But let's say, like, Russ will probably be fine, but there's a 15% chance of him getting a season-ending injury, or a 25% chance of him getting a season-ending injury by playing on it right now. That would go down 10 or 15% if you waited another week. And you look at this game and how much you think you're going to need Russell Wilson for the duration, and you go, you can probably get past this one. I think that's pretty much the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that we kind of tied into the quarterback conversation yesterday was the offensive line talk. Dan Moore Jr. didn't practice on Wednesday. We were curious if that would open up the door for it to be Troy Fautanu and Broderick Jones as the two tackles, as it wasn't practice yesterday. But Dan Moore Jr. was back in practice today. So, how did things shake out with that being the case?
Yeah, Dan was at practice today and looked good. He is also in that video with Russ's footwork there. A couple of videos up on the channel here. And so I expect that Dan Moore is going to play. But I think Troy Fautanu might too. I don't know what's going to happen at tackle. Troy Fautanu, is reported by Jim Lexel, Steel City Insider, confirmed that he worked with most of the first team today and believes that he is in line to start at right tackle. So I don't know what happens to Broderick Jones. I saw him working some right. I saw him working some left. I think right now it's looking plausible that the starting tackles are Dan Moore at left tackle and Troy Fautanu at right tackle, and Broderick Jones not starting.
That's very interesting. Just because we saw Broderick already play in the opener, I know that, Troy's health obviously playing a role into that. And I guess, Tomlin's sticking to his word that he's giving Troy an opportunity to win a starting job in season like that. We actually had a comment, though, from somebody that made this exact same point. Like, when Troy's healthy, he should step into the starting lineup because of the way that Broderick, has played for the most part with that elbow injury. Would this give him is his elbow going to get better though? Is my question. Like, even if he's resting right now, like in season, is that going to be something that happens anyway? Like, if you give him, say you throw Troy in the lineup and you're like, okay, he needs to start because Broderick needs a few weeks to heal this elbow. I don't know that that's going to happen in season anyway.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten any clarity on the injury to Broderick Jones and what it's going to take to get him healthy. I think from what he has told me, I feel like he is mostly healthy, and that the issue is the chance of reoccurrence and him needing to wear that brace. Like, I don't feel like he is in some kind of great deal of pain out there or is somehow physically limited by what his body can do right now. I think it's the chance of being re-injured and needing to wear the brace that seemed like that was the issue. And so I don't know if they have an answer to when he's going to be able to take it off. But this also could just be that they're moving Broderick Jones to left tackle, but they are going to give him a couple weeks of practice there before inserting him into the starting lineup. It could like this. I feel like this was the intention of the last 3 weeks of training camp, where they were going to eventually get Fautanu in there with the ones, and then at that point move Broderick Jones over to the left side and start a competition there. It could be that that's what's happening. It's just happening in the season instead of the last 3 weeks of training camp while Fautanu was hurt.
Alan, I'm thinking that your suspicion about the tackles could very much be correct now. When you told me that, I sent out a text. If you remember last year how I put out that Broderick was going to, when he made his debut, the starting right tackle against the Titans, I got some information, was able to put it out. I texted that same person and just said, think it's Dan Moore and Troy on Sunday. And they just replied, yes. So I'm also now on board with you that I think that that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, I think so. So I think it makes sense if in either of those scenarios, if there is a chance that given some time, Broderick will be able to play without that brace and be more effective. Also, if it's just that they want him to get more practice time at left tackle before inserting him into the lineup, and let him have a competition with Dan Moore. Like, I think that's fair also.
What's your confidence level in Troy, assuming that he does step into the starting rotation here? Because I think that, like we talked about the offensive line play in that first game against Atlanta, and Derek went back and also put out a great thing about, like, they only had 10 true pass sets. Definitely thought that they had nice moments in the run game as well. I don't think there was anything about Broderick that jumped off the page to me, like negatively or positively. I thought Dan was really good on the left side, though, in that game. But what's your comfort level in switching out Broderick for Troy?
I think pretty high. Like, I'm well on the record as saying rookie offensive linemen are generally pretty bad. But I don't think Denver has a pass rusher that really scares me. And I think Troy is a pretty, I think he's top, 95th percentile rookie offensive lineman in terms of NFL readiness. Like, if anybody's going to go in there and not look bad as a rookie, it's Troy Fautanu. And I don't think Broderick Jones has been playing his best football. I thought he was better against Atlanta than he was in the preseason, but I thought Dan Moore was better. And so I think it's reasonable to think that could be their best two tackles this week. And again, going back to the quarterback conversation, there's a balance here between, hey, we want Broderick Jones to be our left tackle of the future and Troy Fautanu to be the right tackle of the future, but also they really need to win these games. There's a lot going on around the tackle position. Two very inexperienced interior linemen in Frazier and Anderson. Looks like likely playing a backup quarterback for the second straight week. You kind of got to play your best tackles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can say, no, well, Broderick's our guy for the long term, so let's just play him now, even if he's worse at this very moment. I think they got to find a way to win these games, and they're not like they're overwhelmingly talented in other places that it just doesn't matter who plays tackle.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, if they feel like Troy's the better player right now and Dan's the better player right now, I'm not somebody that obviously long term I want it to be Broderick and Troy, but for the time being here at the early portions of the season with Broderick dealing what he's dealt with and hampering him very clearly and his play not being up there, I mean, I have no problem with him rolling out with Dan and Troy. I kind of want to tie those two things together that we've talked about, quarterback play and the offensive line play, because I was having this conversation with somebody. I also feel like the Arthur Smith effect we've kind of seen with the offensive line, where he's also able to kind of mask maybe some weaknesses, like the scheme itself just does that naturally. But I also wanted to talk about, because you guys had the availability with him today, the quarterback stuff. He talked about Justin's performance, kind of avoiding the middle of the field. That was a him thing. And then he talked about just his decision-making in general. We've talked about a ton how he didn't turn the football over. Obviously, that was a huge plus. That's rule numero uno for Steelers quarterbacks not to do, is turning the football over. So what did you take away from the conversation with Art Smith today?
Yeah, I thought he did a really nice job of threading the needle of talking about Justin Fields on two levels. Like big picture, he did what they needed him to do. Like he took thoughtful risks. He took care of the football. He kind of led the offense, kept things calm after a slow start, kind of did what they needed him to do in the global perspective. But also in the sort of tactical perspective, plenty of decisions that could have gone a lot better. Plenty. And so I think it's tough when you're a coordinator, when you're in one of those perspectives, because, people that have my job that maybe don't have a great understanding of the nuance of the position, it's very easy for him to say, well, he took care of the football and did everything we asked, and then write some glowing report on Justin Fields, when the reality is, it was both. He was inaccurate and made poor decisions and had some problems with some details, but also largely did what he was asked to do and got the results that they needed from him to win the game. And so, you kind of have to be able to hit both of those points. And I thought he did a really nice job of that. Having not really had a lot of experience with Art, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to get in that regard. Some coaches just refuse to ever criticize a player publicly. They just won't do it. And so I thought it was interesting that he was kind of willing to say, hey, there were details there that Justin needs to clean up. And there's a lot of improvement to be had, while at the same time giving him credit for taking care of some big picture stuff.
Yeah, I like to think about the middle of the field that he, openly kind of talked about too, from a coaching perspective, recognizing what they have on the other side, obviously, in Jessie Bates and Justin Simmons, and saying those weren't going to be the guys to turn the game on its head for them, like TJ Watt did for us.
Yeah, man, what a coaching job there. He basically said, look, we were trying really hard to stay away from Jessie Bates, and specifically Jessie Bates, but also Justin Simmons,
right,
to the point that he said, we were trying to lull Jessie Bates to sleep. We were trying to get him to think that we were just never going to throw the ball near him. And then they got him right at the end of the half on the double move to George Pickens. And Art Smith, who obviously was Jessie Bates' head coach last year, said he texted him and said, you got me. You tricked me. And it was when was the last time there was a defender saying, oh man, the Steelers offense fooled me? What a turnabout from last year, when every time we had this conversation, it was the other team's defense saying, man, we knew all the plays. And I think it's really funny that a lot of people who don't know anything's reaction to seeing that chart of Justin Fields not throwing the ball over the middle, oh man, Canada 2.0, just the dumbest possible reaction to that game was thinking that there is that this offense is somehow in any way similar to what they had last year, or that Arthur Smith and Matt Canada are the same guy. Please. The fact that there was that reaction out there was hilarious to me. And then to hear it explained this way, I think is so perfect.
Well, that's why, like, I wanted to ask. I don't want to spend time talking about Matt Canada. Like, I want him to obviously, like, it's over. That era's over. Go on, live your life, do whatever. Wish him no harm, obviously, as a human being. But I wanted to ask you too. I feel like there's such a difference, even in the way that Art was kind of talking to you guys about it. Like, I feel like it's just night and day difference from how you would tell me last year would go with the offensive coordinator availability as opposed to this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, but it's also easy to have friendly conversations when you're undefeated. I'll say that too. You know,
that's fair. Yeah,
there's no drama yet, but you know, I thought Art really took like some critiques in the form of questions and actually explained the reasoning behind it in a way that made sense. It didn't just sound like he was being defensive of what he did. You know, there was a question about the play where Steelers get stopped on 3rd and 2 with Calvin Austin blocking and little swing pass to Van Jefferson. And Arthur Smith said, like, this was a decision problem. Like, we either needed to give the ball to the running back, was a fake, or throw it faster. Like Justin held on to the ball too long here. And by the time Van Jefferson gets the ball, like you can't expect Calvin Austin to be holding that block that long. Like, it's just not going to work. And so he's like, this is not Calvin Austin's fault. This is, we shouldn't have thrown it there. Like, then either we needed to throw it there sooner or we needed to run the ball the other side. And if you look at the replay, if he gives the ball to Jalen Warren, it's probably a walk-in touchdown. Like there's just not enough guys on the left-hand side. And Arthur Smith said, like, we practiced this. We expected that look, and we put this play in exactly for that look. So it's frustrating to not execute on it. And then, you know, he said the 4th down, the sneak, he said, look, their guy just made a really good play. And that's going to happen sometimes. That's why you have to execute your own details, because there are going to be times when you had the right thought and you did the right thing and you just got beat. And that's what happened on 4th down. But that's why we can't accept what happened on 3rd down. And I just think that's like, yeah, from a perspective of just like the coach explaining what's happening. And also like the thing I've been hearing from every player on the offense that was here last year that I talked to is how much better Arthur Smith is about explaining to everyone why things need to happen, why it's going to work if you do it the way he says, and getting buy-in as a result. And look, he doesn't need to explain it to us, but the fact that he's so clearly really good at explaining to us, I think makes what I'm hearing from guys in the locker room resonate a lot more, that like, this guy really is good at this in terms of explaining why things need to be the way they are and getting buy-in from the players as a result.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that that's kind of the first thing that, like, when I had a conversation with Pat about the offense, literally the first thing that he brought up was the details and understanding of why. And, you know, I think that they all really appreciate that. Let's stick with the offense, because I want to ask you about Najee Harris and, you know, the conversation with him today about the offense, just like the comfort level of where things are. You put out a tweet when the game was going on about, like, the Steelers had the lead at this point, and you kind of said, like, this is where the Steelers are comfortable playing from ahead. They can just play their brand of football. And it kind of seems like that's kind of where Najee was talking about it as well. Like a comfort level in these ugly games, winning ugly, just playing that brand of football.
Yeah, I thought Najee was really insightful today too, about the sort of, you know, like he got the question, hey, how do you turn these field goal drives into touchdowns? Which is a very fair question. Like, that you cannot win very many NFL games without scoring a touchdown. And so, you know, he kind of talked openly about, you know, the areas that the offense can be better and the ways they can improve, but also like, talked about how at the same time they have a level of comfort in playing ugly games, and that if they feel like that they're on the right track, they're okay with getting 3-4 yards at a time. They know that the big ones will come. And like, so it's like identifying where you can be better, but also not forcing things that don't need to improve, where it's just about being patient and about wearing a team down over the course of a game. And I really felt like that's what happened to the Falcons, that in the second half, the Steelers got a lead and they started to run the ball better with a lead than they had when they were trailing. which doesn't make any sense, right? When you're ahead and you're trying to milk clock, the other team should be expecting you to run. But the Steelers actually got better as the game went on, and I feel like they wore them down. Like, they played the long game. They just kept going. And I think it was really insightful to hear Najee Harris talk about we know where we want to be better and how we have to turn those field goal drives into touchdowns, but also understanding what worked and what made you good was the willingness to keep doing what you were doing and being comfortable. He compared it to a boxing match. It's like, it's a 15-round fight. You are not always going to get the first-round knockout that you are preparing to get and hoping to get, and you have to be able to win 15-round fights, even if the knockout punches don't land.
Yeah, I mean, that's – wait, he made that analogy to boxing like that? Oh, yeah, that's great. That's kind of why I said that, like, going back and watching, I felt like there were so many encouraging things about this, and like people were trying to, I feel like, almost lump this offensive performance in with last year because they only scored 18 points and didn't score a touchdown, and just think it's like a continuation of the exact same thing. But I know it's only 1 week, but fourth and time of possession, they only had 1 3 and out. Like, to me, I don't think it was the same level of efficiency from this offense that we've seen over the last few years that have been so frustrating.
No, it was very clearly an offense that was in control of what was happening the entire time. They did not feel like they needed to take more risks than they did to win the game. So with a backup quarterback and 2 rookie offensive linemen making their first start, a banged up second running back, they just simply chose not to take any more risks. It was not an offense that looked like it was not capable of doing more than it did.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good stuff from not. Did you any other takeaways from any other conversations that you had today?
I talked to Najee about the altitude because I feel like he's pretty uniquely like a guy. He's a thoughtful guy about the way he trains and things like that. And he said this summer he was at like Yellowstone, like in the elevation, and he just ran. Like, he wasn't going there to train, but he ran at the elevation just to feel like he could kind of get a sense for the way it goes. And he said, like, right now, he said, it's just funny. He's like, right now I feel pretty good, but ask me again on Sunday. So I thought that was a pretty good acknowledgement of like, I don't know, I've done some things, but until you've done it, you don't really know. I think they're going to have to rely on their depth in that area in a lot of places because, if you go over the years and you go look at Denver's home record in September, the combination of the altitude and the heat really does a number on visiting teams.
Interesting. Okay. And lastly, I think you kind of mentioned, I don't know if there was anything to take away from it, but a few guys kind of talking about the mobility difference, obviously going from Kirk Cousins in week 1 to Bo Nix in week 2, who obviously can offer something with his legs.
Yeah, I talked to Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, and Minka Fitzpatrick, and I just kind of wanted to get the sense of how much they feel like what worked last week will work again this week, or if it almost needs to be a different game plan. With Kirk Cousins, a very experienced quarterback, a guy who's really good at reading defenses, a guy who's really, really good against the blitz, and a guy who clearly was dealing with some limited mobility. And, the game plan for the Steelers last week was rush 4, find a way to make those 4 get home and not blitz and cover behind it. And that's how they wanted to attack Kirk Cousins. It almost feels like with Bo Nix, it's going to be a little bit different. This is a guy who is mobile, who wants to use his legs. I think this is a guy where maybe they want to confuse him with some blitzes, right? They want to mix up the look a little bit and try to get him off his game in a way that you were not going to be able to do to Kirk Cousins. So it's very much a different assignment, I feel like, for the Steelers defense, and also a player where you do have to be aware of his mobility and his ability to use it as a weapon. Like, you have to account for the quarterback running in this game in a way that you did not last week. So a very different challenge. But the one thing I took away from talking to Alex Highsmith specifically was that he said that being able to get pressure when you rush 4 makes your blitzes better. He's like, because like you're if you have to blitz to get pressure, you can live that way, but it is dangerous. It's like when you can compound pressure, you're getting pressure with 4 and then you can blitz, it's so much more effective. And I thought the fact that they were able to get so much pressure with 4, and it wasn't just the edge guys. That Larry Ogunjobi was getting pressure, Montravius Adams was getting pressure, Cam Hayward was getting pressure. That, to me, is a really good sign for this pass rush's ability to be sort of multifaceted and multidimensional, where they can rush you with 4 and get home, they can blitz and get home, they can keep you in the pocket, they can try to chase you from the pocket, they can attack mobile and, frankly, immobile quarterbacks. I'm really high on this defense, but I thought that was a really interesting conversation with those guys.
Yeah, we've also talked about, the talent level at all 3 levels of the defense being able to, they can pay more attention to quarterbacks with mobility. Now, I'm not dropping Bo Nix in the same bucket as Lamar Jackson or anything like that, but I'm just saying for a guy that can use his legs a little bit too, they're more equipped this year than in past years to pay a little bit of attention to that.
Yeah, I think the linebacker play, with Patrick Queen there and Peyton Wilson gives them a speed factor that they haven't really had in terms of being able to run sideline to sideline with some mobile quarterbacks. I think that's a big deal for them. I think that's going to play up really nicely as we get into Nix is he's mobile, but he's not on the same level as, like you said, a Lamar or even Anthony Richardson coming way earlier on the schedule than that. And so I think that linebacker speed and a guy like Deshaun Elliott, you can probably include in that box, is really going to play up in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, as always. Be sure to hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything we talked about, any questions for a future episode. Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. At PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. SteelersNow.com. That's where the words live. Read them so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus. Use promo code Allen10 to get 10% off. Derek Bell has a lengthy story on the site today for SN Plus subscribers. Go check it out. I will have the Southside Scoop coming, I believe, tomorrow or Saturday morning. I don't know. We're still figuring it out. Still working through the process there, but I'm shooting for tomorrow at some point for the Southside Scoop. Really good stuff. Let's see, what can I tease there? Good conversation with Scotty Miller today about some subjects. Talked to Beanie Bishop about some stuff. It's all in there.
Scotty Miller, my favorite field goal holder.
Yeah, there you go. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive or Steelers Morning Rush or Sights and Sounds in Practice or interviews or all the other stuff that we got here on the YouTube platform.
There you go. And if you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there as well. And hit us up on TikTok, Steelers Afternoon Drive. Find me everywhere at Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.